Kuhn is the fullback with the first and goal. Kuhn gets the call. Pyle trying to his way in for the touchdown. What a great second effort. Here comes the. Y'all don't really want it like that. Here comes the. Y'all don't really want it like that. I said so. I keep big bills up in my heart on the dirty like blood. So ain't got no twist in my head, but I'm still dreadful.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive. We're paving your way to fantasy glory, fantasy excellence, fantasy championships, and all that stuff. And, of course, we're brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, as always. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself, who is committed to this craft as never before. We got a Cowboys-Saints game coming up that we're going to talk about. Not as much injury news as we've had in the past, so hopefully we're going to be able to plow through this stuff, give you your higher, lower Hail Marys, and then answer all your questions, take all your comments, all that good stuff. Wolf, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I got a big night with Taysom Hill. We'll talk about some Thursday night football. I have some big decisions too, so I'd love to get your feedback on them. And of course, the Wolfpack out there. I always love hearing what you guys have to say on my big decisions that we have going. But man, I'm good. The week after Thanksgiving's always, as we're talking about live on Monday, like such a big drinking week those last 3 days. And so getting back into the week is always foggy, but it's actually been a really smooth week. So pumped. It just pumped to get back to football. It feels like we just were at Thanksgiving, and here we are again. Week 13, 2 more weeks till the playoffs? Doesn't get better than this shit, Nat. I'm in the hunt for a bye in my main league. If I win out, I'll get it. So I'm stoked. How about you, brother? How you doing?
I mean, I'm scrapping to stay above water, pretty much. I told you, I've been decimated by injuries so bad, coupled with just being an idiot. Just found out Antonio Brown is suspended for 3 games.
Oh, yeah.
So I won't get him back for the first week of the playoffs. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm going to end this season with an absolute all-star team on my bench, which is not much consolation. We'll see. There's a decent chance I can still make the playoffs. Maybe I can make a run. I do still have pretty good players. I've played the waiver wire extremely well this year. And that's managed to keep my head above water.
Mitchell and Patterson, right?
Cordero Patterson, Daryl Williams Daryl Williams was great for me also when I was playing him. I also got him for nothing off waivers. So
before we dive in that, like you have both of the guys that are in the running for fantasy football waiver wire MVP in Mitchell and Patterson. Who would you say, now that you have them both, like who has been more valuable to your team, would you say, this year?
Patterson.
Yeah, the blow-up games are just so sexy.
I mean, it's possible by the end of the season, maybe it's Mitchell, but I mean, Patterson really has just been such a gift. And remember, right when I got Mitchell, then it was on and off. He was injured. He wasn't injured for quite a while. He's a great talent. I think he's going to be an awesome running back. You know, the shelf life of running backs, not too long in the NFL. But if we see 4 or 5 really good years out of Eli Mitchell moving forward, I wouldn't be shocked.
Not at all. No. And it's funny because Patterson might be my best take of the year. Granted, I wasn't all in preseason. I didn't really write much about him. But after week 1, I was one of the first people to be like, hey, this guy was leading the team in yardage, even on half the carries that Mike Davis got. And I didn't get more heat for any take than my one on Cordero Patterson early in week 1. Have you guys seen him play? You are a moron. All this stupid shit. So that one feels pretty damn good to have in the back pocket, to be one of the first on the Cordero Patterson scene when nobody was talking about him in week 1. I took a couple weeks for people to wake up to him. And then the other one I've gotten destroyed for is after week 1, I tweeted out, it's clear we were wrong about Joe Mixon. He should have been ahead of Antonio Gibson this entire time. So many people, so smart to overreact to week 1, you moron. There's a difference. So I get it. You obviously want to see more tape, but when something is clearly a different role or different situation than what we're anticipating, there's also you don't want to sit forever and wait to let this thing unfold. And clearly that take has panned out as well. So 2 of the takes I got the most heat for have ended up actually panning out for me, which is always kind of nice. I know I certainly haven't been right on everything this week.
No, of course not. But I mean, another thing about, you and the site in general and myself, just about everybody who works here, I think we're willing to pivot if we're wrong. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and throw good money after bad. If I I've had to eat a lot of crow in my time, and I've been right a bunch. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to admit it. So anyway, Joe Mixon's a top guy. He's a top 5.
Absolutely. Now we go for it, man. And actually, I don't even know if I told you that I was number 5 in last week's rankings. So starting to climb back up there. I know it has not been my best rankings year. A lot of what's crushed me, to be honest, is doing the live show on Sunday mornings. It's been so much busier this year. I don't want to make excuses, but ultimately, I often don't get an injured player out or swap the guy up that should be getting swapped.
That can kill you.
I'm answering the questions, and that's what I love to do. And that, at the end of the day, that means more to me is getting to you guys than I do love the competition. I would love to be top 15 like I was last year. But at the end of the day, I don't sit here with a ton of regrets. But last week I did end 15 minutes early to make sure I could adjust some things, and it worked out. So hopefully I'm hoping to go on a big stretch run. I know I won't get into the top 10 at this point or anything of that nature, but it'd be pretty badass to finish in the top 10, for multiple weeks down here in the crunch time. That's my goal right now, baby. So I'm pumped to be back. It's just good to feel that going again. I will see. But yeah, absolutely. Wolfpack, thank you so much. I love all you guys more than anything too. So thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. That thumbs up will help us continue to grow and get out to more people. We've almost hit that 2K goal for subscribers as well. So whether you're subbed yet or not, if you like this show, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, it would really go a long way while we try to fight for 2K. Our goal was to get to, I think, 1,500 entering the season. We've already blown past that because you guys have been amazing. But we'd love to hit 2,000 now, maybe even continue to set that bar higher. So that thumbs up does help us keep getting out there, growing to more people. If you're on Twitter as well, it doesn't show your questions. I know a couple people have messaged to me saying, hey, you skipped my question on Twitter. I got some DMs about that this week. So I know that audience has kind of gone down. It makes sense. We can't answer your questions there. So if you're on Twitter watching this and you want a question get answered, come on over to YouTube. That's on our software. That's what pops up. I just want to make sure to preface that with everybody.
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Thursday Night Football news. And, of course, that's going to be led off with Taysom Hill, who is going to be starting at quarterback against Cowboys this week. You have to assume that he just wasn't ready to go before this, because the guy that he's replacing was just god-awful. Just terrible. Hill had been dealing with a foot issue. He had only played 38 offensive snaps since he had a concussion in week 5, which was like an eternity ago. But his results haven't been bad when he's been the quarterback of the Saints, and he did just sign a massive deal. So let's prove it, dude. The Saints are still, believe it or not, hanging around the playoff picture.
Absolutely. And I'm such a mixed bag on Taysom Hill right now. I've raved about him many times. Any of you that watch this show, I'll repeat the stats for you all again. Over 21 fantasy points per game across his 4 starts last year was the QB stretch, a QB 6 during that stretch. Ultimately averaged, 50 yards on the ground, a touchdown per game, and 10 carries. The definition of Konami upside right there. I'd love to see that. But ultimately, we also have to consider the fact that, one, he has been battling a foot injury. That's why he hasn't been seeing snaps. He practiced in full. He's off the injury report. I imagine it's not a concern at this point. But you also have to consider tonight he's without his left tackle and his right tackle. That's like the next news in the Philip we have here. Taron Armstead and Ryan Ramsey are both out this week. That doesn't help anybody's cause. And then last year, he also had Michael Thomas to throw to that had a 30% target share across his games. He had Emmanuel Sanders there as well. This weapons cabinet, Alvin Kamara was also healthy this year.
He's out, cabinet, right? Kamara's not playing tonight, right?
Kamara's not playing. That's the next news note we have here. So, now you're looking at a top receiving core of Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith. That's going to make everybody puke. Probably the worst receiving cabinet in the entire NFL. Mark Ingram's been solid in his spot starts, but ultimately is not even close to the weapon that Alvin Kamara is. So, yes, it's nice to know how good he was last year, but there's a lot of factors against him. All that being said, I have to start him because I have Rodgers out, and if it's him or Daniel Jones, who might not even play,
right? He's
Taylor Heineke. If it's those, it's between Hill and those guys. I still have him at QB 13 because the rushing upside is still there. It still establishes a decent floor, in my opinion. But, man, would anybody be shocked if the Cowboys just absolutely murder this team with none of their offensive line tonight? And DeMarcus Lawrence coming back? I guess we've kind of covered all the news as we.
Yeah, I know. We're flying through this stuff. So it just organically showed up in our back and forth. I will just say this: when the Saints are bad, they are fucking bad. Right. They're one of who did they play a couple? Oh, it was when we started freaking Tony Jones, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Right.
I thought I could move on from that.
No, but that was one of the worst performances by a football team I've just about ever seen. Tony Jones was one of the worst guys on that terrible football team. But when you said would I be shocked if the Cowboys just steamrolled? No, I would not be at all. As a matter of fact, I might be shocked if that didn't happen. With that said, Taysom Hill, he does produce fantasy points to the point where I actually picked him up. I don't need him this week. I'm going with Stafford, but I actually picked him up as a defensive move so the guy I'm playing against wouldn't pick him up. And I did want a backup quarterback. So he's on my roster now. and I don't feel bad about it. Like, he's a guy who can score you 20 to 25 fantasy points as a quarterback, legit.
100%. He gets the Jets next week too. So even if it doesn't go so hot this week, if he gets some weapons back next week, there's still some streaming upside given what he's done in the past. But yeah, I mean, I'm starting him and I'm very nervous. Could he get to like the 18 to 21 that we saw all of his starts last year? Sure. But it is a much different team. So we don't want to sit here and say it's as automatic as last year. One question I've gotten a lot is Taysom Hill versus Derek Carr. In that case, I'm going to go Derek Carr. He gets Washington, the worst secondary in the league, most points allowed to QBs, just a nice sturdy floor. Does he have Hill's ceiling? Not quite, but he also did just coming off a 21-point day, even after giving up a touchdown to Marcus Mariota on the ground. Like there is a ceiling with Derek Carr, and there's like a nice baked in 15 points. Hill could get to 20, but he also could get you like 4 tonight. And again, I'm playing him. I'm sweating it hard. It's not as foolproof as it was last year.
No, God, it's not at all. Missing those line guys, missing Kamara. Not that Hill utilizes Kamara especially well, but
right,
yeah, it's a lot of red flags. I hear you.
Yeah.
The only other
keep
guy
that in mind as you guys get ready for tonight. What's the only other note we have? Like
Amari Cooper. Yeah. Right? He's off the COVID list. He is playing tonight. They're listing him as questionable, but supposedly he's going to go tonight.
Yeah, so I think he's back in lineups. The Saints have given up the 4th most points to wide receivers, routinely getting bombed. They are a good run D, so one of those classic pass funnels, as we like to call it. So yeah, I think he is inconsistent as Amari Cooper has been, back-to-back games in single digits. He does always have that 25. It's kind of like I always call him a fancier Mike Williams. He's one of those guys that will blow up, and then it's so hard to bench him. But, man, he does hurt you more often than he helps. That being said, I think this could be a week he helps more than he hurts. I think this passing game for the Cowboys is going to blow up. I have Dak as my QB1. We'll talk about all that when we get to higher, lower, Hail Mary. But I really think the Cowboys are going to go nuts through the air. I hope Taysom Hill holds up his end of the bargain and we get a good game. I don't expect that at all. So, yeah, let us know if you guys have Taysom Hill questions, Amari Cooper questions, all that good stuff. But I am and Mark Ingram, too. Yes, Kamara is out. Mark Ingram's played 85% of the snaps with Ingram out. With Kamara out. And he's had 18 and 12 fantasy points, kind of automatic. It's also, though, again, no tackles here. You got now Hill potentially vulturing at the goal line, and we know he doesn't love to throw to his running back. So even Mark Ingram, a little bit riskier than what he's been with Trevor Siemian, which is kind of crazy that you are upgraded by Trevor Siemian at quarterback. But I am a little bit sketchier on Mark Ingram, and that's the question I wanted to ask the Wolfpack. I could start him tonight. It's between him for 2 running back spots. It's between Ingram, Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders. I think I'm benching Ingram there. And then it comes down to, okay, do I want to put him in the flex over Dawson Knox? Right now I have Ingram on the bench. What are your thoughts on that situation?
I would definitely not. Well, I don't want to say definitely because all these things are like, they could go either way. But I would not flex him over Knox. And I cannot really see him going over Javonte. I would go
with Melvin Gordon potentially not playing.
I would go Javonte.
Sanders gets the Jets. Like
Sanders is more of like a toss up to me. I don't know. Like you told me the other day Sanders hasn't scored a touchdown all year.
He hasn't.
I was just
sucks.
All right, well, I'm probably not going to play him.
Yeah, I know.
I'd probably go Javonte, Ingram, Sanders. But if you wanted to switch the bottom 2, I wouldn't say you were crazy. But I there's no way I would play Ingram over Knox.
Yeah. So you're saying Javonte? Oh, that's how you ordered him. Okay.
Yeah.
And I get that. The only reason Sanders is even, I would normally just bench Sanders after he's been so crap. He faces the Jets this week, though.
Oh, okay.
And as you know, over 35 fantasy points per game, the most touchdowns surrendered to running backs. If he's ever going to score a touchdown.
Probably just going to be a big Boston Scott game, though.
It could be. Scott's also, we're going to get into some of those notes. Let's get into the injury roundup because there is a reason.
Let's get into it. Quarterbacks, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are both going to be coming back playing week 13 against the Bears. Seems like it's been a while since we've had those guys both clicking in the lineup. And yet the Cardinals are still maintaining a really good record. And I believe they're still first in the NFC, right?
Yeah, it's funny, Nat, because we always talk. You'll ask me, who do you think is the biggest contender in the NFC? And for some reason, neither of us ever say the Cardinals. We always overlook them. And I don't know if we're right in that gut reflex. You just kind of dismiss them. They have a good defense. And obviously, when Kyler Murray and everybody's healthy, that offense is as deadly as there is in the NFL. I, for some reason, just don't believe in Cliff Kingsbury as like a stretch run type of coach. I like him. I think he's doing a great job this year with the weapons he has. But ultimately, for some reason, I just see them tanking in like the first round of the playoffs. I don't know. I don't believe in them myself, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I kind of feel the same way about them. I feel bad saying this. Remember, we said this about the Titans like 2 weeks ago when they were the first in the AFC, and we both were kind of like, "You believe in the Titans?" And we at the same time we're just like, "No, not even a little bit." And then they got beat by the Texans or something, some shit team, and we were right. I feel like I'm disrespecting the Cardinals a little bit, putting them in that category because I like them more than I like the Titans. Yeah. But I don't. If push comes to shove. Am I going to pick them over the Packers in the playoffs? Probably not. Am I going to pick them over, the Bucks in the playoffs? Probably not. And there's probably a couple more too. So, yeah, we're the same.
I hope they prove me wrong. But yeah, fantasy-wise,
I like them.
Yeah, fantasy-wise, Kyler Murray right back into my top 5. He's been a dynamo all year, other than the most recent game where he got dinged up. And then Hopkins, he's in my higher, lower Hail Mary, so I'll expand on him a little bit later. I think he's right back into your top 10 receivers. He's an alpha in every sense of the word, even though they do spread it out a little bit more. They go to him in the red zone. They go to him in tough situations. I still think against a Chicago team giving up the 5th most points to wide receivers, he comes right back with a big day. Jalen Hurts, ankle injury, was a limited participant. He already has come out and said he's planning to play here. He gets the Jets. The one thing, though, is if he is limited at all as a runner, that really does hurt. That's why he's so good. That's why, as fantasy-wise, the fact that he has over 50 rushing yards in all but 2 games, that's why this guy has been a fantasy monster all year. If that rushing upside gets limited, and that's why I love him against the Jets this week, is how bad of a rushing defense they have. If that's capped, well, one, that helps out Sanders, that helps out the running game. That's kind of why Sanders is getting a little bit of a tick up in my rankings. But 2, it lowers his ceiling significantly if he's hampered at all. So right now he's my QB6 until we hear that this is really, truly limiting. But still something you got to monitor heading into Sunday.
Daniel Jones dealing with neck issues. He's limited for Thursday's practice. Freddie Kitchen says he is expecting Daniel Jones to be the Giants quarterback for Week 13 against the Dolphins. Joe Judge mentioned that Jones's status is quote unquote in the hands of doctors now, which reminds me of like when someone like has had a horrible accident and they're like, well, it's in the hands of God now. And you're like, well, that ain't good. Right. So, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know. We've learned, just over time, neck injuries, nothing to mess around with. No joke. We've seen Chris Carson. I mean, he's having to have like his neck fused or whatever he's at for the year. I don't know. Maybe this isn't as serious as that, but it's not feeling me with any huge, overwhelming sense of optimism if I'm somebody that's relying on Daniel Jones, which I can completely understand why you're starting Taysom Hill instead of Daniel Jones.
Exactly, right. If you're relying on Daniel Jones, you're probably out of your fantasy league anyways, and you don't really care here. This is more to say the Miami defense, regardless of who's under center, is going to be one of the blessed plays. They're my number 1 ranked defense heading into this week. 17 points in 3 of their last 4. Love them. And they were out there in over half of leagues entering the week. If they're somehow still out there in your leagues, you have to go get the Miami defense. It doesn't matter if it's Jones. It doesn't matter if it's Glennon. Even better if it's Glennon, to be honest.
Sure.
But yeah, going to be a smash play. Justin Fields was limited in practice today. Ultimately, Andy Dalton did receive the starters reps. So it sounds like Andy Dalton will be making his 3rd straight appearance here. I do think Fields, with a stretch run, a decent schedule, may be worth a stash in 2 QB leagues. But otherwise, you can probably pass this one over and not really worry.
All right, we're going to talk about the Eagles running backs now. I understand a little more why Miles Sanders is a little more nudged to the front with you than he was. He's upgraded to a full practice participant. Meanwhile, Jordan Howard dealing with a knee issue. Boston Scott, non-COVID illness, not practicing at all. So maybe Miles Sanders is about to get the full bulk of a workload against a very soft New York Jets defense.
Yeah, absolutely. If I had to guess, I think Boston Scott will end up playing and will still continue to be a thorn in Miles Sanders' side. For whatever reason, he seems to get the goal line carries ahead of Sanders. He certainly gets the receiving work, but they might not be have a choice here. And it just seems like Sanders has been looming for this breakout. He seems good every time he gets the rock. I guess the last couple of weeks, he doesn't look quite as explosive as he did earlier in the season, but still watching the guy play, he's one of the better running backs every time he touches the rock. In my opinion, he's just criminally misused. I think this will be a solid coming out party. Who better than the Jets, who have given up by far the most fantasy points to running backs, over a touchdown per game, more than the next closest team. And I think this is the week he finally finds the end zone. James Robinson was sidelined for Thursday practice. What makes this more concerning is he did practice yesterday and then was downgraded. You never like mid-week downgrades. This means Carlos Hyde, who's out there in pretty much every league, could be in play. 22 backfield touches the last time that Robinson missed the game. It's the Rams. It's not a great matchup for anybody here, but ultimately Carlos Hyde could become a viable streamer if Robinson sits.
Ian Rappaport says that Deandre Swift, dealing with that shoulder issue, feels like a long shot to return in week 14. He hasn't practiced at all. He has not been ruled out yet, but it seems like as they said in the article, he's on the wrong side of questionable. Seems unlikely that he'll play. That would put Jamal Williams as the main back, which would put him, where would you rank Jamal Williams if Swift doesn't play?
He's right inside my top 20 running backs. I believe he's right at running back 18, a Vikings team that's surrendered nearly 130 yards on the ground to opposing running backs, a top 10 matchup for running backs right now. And Williams, whenever he's gotten volume, averages nearly 15 fantasy points per game in games that Aaron Jones missed. I know this is a different team. I know that the Packers are a significantly better offense than the Lions, but for what it's worth, the Lions love peppering their backs, and Jamal Williams is very adept at pass blocking, at receiving. He's going to get a full when Swift got out, he handled all but one backfield touch and all but 3 backfield snaps. Jamal Williams did, even with Jamar Jefferson and Godwin, whatever that guy's name is, active. So I think this is going to be the Jamal Williams show, and you have to have him in most lineups, in my opinion. Speaking on Thursday, Vic Fangio says Melvin Gordon is not practicing, and he's 50-50 to play against the Chiefs. Now, this is a Sunday night football game, making Gordon a bit riskier to wait for if we don't get any new news as of Friday. If he sits tomorrow, you got to think he's on the wrong side of questionable. Conversely, if he practices tomorrow, even if it's limited, you got to imagine he's probably going to be out there. Should he sit, though? I mean, Javonte Williams, this guy is just waiting for the right volume. Even without the volume, he put up 18 points last week. Every time he touches the rock, he pops off the page. I think this guy is going to be an absolute stud down the road, and I would love to see him get a full workload for the first time in his NFL career. I think he'd have a 25-plus fantasy point day and be right inside my top 10 running backs if we get word that Melvin Gordon's out.
In the category of news involving players insignificant to the point where we wonder why we were even mentioning them, David Johnson, dealing with an illness and a thigh issue, the double-factor there, did not practice on Thursday. Interestingly enough, because of this bug that's going around the Texans facility or whatever, they haven't really been able to get in there and find out how serious either of these two things is. So maybe he's fine. Maybe he's, seriously injured or seriously ill. We don't know. If he doesn't play, that's going to open the door for big game Rex Burkhead to put his stamp on things.
And that's really the only reason this is worth mentioning, because there would be a decent amount of volume up for grabs. And Burkhead, if nothing else, can churn out like some gross 3.6 yards per clip. Get to like 60 yards and maybe fall his ass into the end zone. So as a Hail Mary, we'll get to Hail Marys later, it would significantly boost Rex Burkhead's appeal if David Johnson sits. McKissick did not practice on Thursday. You probably weren't considering him anyways, no matter how good the matchup was against the Raiders, the 4th most points to running backs allowed. This just makes Antonio Gibson, who has seen the most carries since the bye week in the NFL right now. So he's back to like near workhorse duties. Even more impressively, though, had 7 targets, caught all 7 of them last week. And that was with McKissick vulturing 2 touchdowns, too. He still had a monster 20-point day, Gibson did. If McKissick's out and all that work's going to Gibson, he would have the RB1 upside. So definitely track that one. Great matchup for Gibson. Already in my top 10 running backs, but he'd probably be in my top 3 if McKissick's officially ruled out, if and when. It seems like it's definitely trending towards when.
Philip Lindsay was out with an ankle injury during Thursday's practice. He only came in and did a little bit of mop-up duty during his debut with the Dolphins last week. He had, 12 carries, something like that. I don't remember. Maybe it was 15.
Yeah,
wasn't like impressive or anything. They were already up 14, 17 points, something like that. I mean, if he doesn't play, that's just going to mean Gaskin gets more carries, basically.
Yeah, it really is only on here to emphasize that Gaskin, who's already an RB2 for you, would have that much more secure after having over 80% of the running back snaps and rushing workload heading into last week. When Lindsay arrived, he went down to 50% of those things. So this would certainly boost his volume and just floor, ceiling, all that stuff if Lindsay's out. As much as Lindsay's a non-factor, real life-wise and fantasy-wise, he does impact Gaskin's status. Daryl Henderson, I've not seen an updated practice report yet as of Thursday. It's going live here. The West Coast, a lot of those reports have not come out where at least I could see him. So anybody, obviously in the comments, I know I like to ask if you see anything on Henderson, as well as Odell Beckham, who didn't practice on Wednesday, would be appreciated. This one seems a little sketchy with that quad. They've mentioned Sean McVay saying he expects him to be out there, but if not, Sony Michel would instantly leap into my top 15 running backs. Not all that impressive of a player, obviously, but in this offense, playing 70% of the snaps and seeing 70% of the work, that's enough for this guy to pay off top 15 value, in my opinion. So track that one very, very closely.
Antonio Brown. We're going to wide receivers right now. Give us a like if you have not done so already. Antonio Brown, as well as defensive back Mike Edwards, have been suspended 3 games without pay for violating NFL COVID-19 protocols. You recall, I mean, this story is, as you know, a month old at this point. There's talk of his former personal chef said he had a fake vaccine card. Then his lawyer was like, no, he's vaccinated. Kind of seems like he's probably not vaccinated.
Nope.
just based on this. So he's suspended for 3 games. 2 of those he'd have probably not played anyway due to injury. If you're someone like me who's got him on your team, you might get lucky if you make it to the second round of the fantasy playoffs, and maybe he'll do something for you. But man, this guy has been a disappointment in the games he hasn't played this year, which is most of them.
Right, exactly. Wide receiver 4 in points per game. So obviously he's been a stud out there, and probably if you've held on to him this long, it's like, what's the point?
I'm not dropping him
now. It's really only one more game, as you said, than what he was expected to miss moving forward anyways. But man, it is burning some valuable bench space at this point. Still, I'd rather have him on my team, whether I make the semis or not. I don't want him facing me if I make it to that point, and I hate cutting him. That did not go so well. Could easily see the wide receiver 4 in points per game hitting those numbers yet again once he's back. Sterling Shepard limited with Kadarius Toney sidelined. Shepard, as we've emphasized time and time again, the 5 full games he's made it through has been a top 20 wide receiver in all of them dating back to last year, and a number 1 wide receiver in half of those games, 3 out of 5. So there is obviously upside to him. The downside is he just gets hurt right at the start of the game and crushes your fantasy soul right before the game starts. And Miami's defense has been significantly better. And Mike Glennon's going to be playing. So lots of downside to Sterling Shepard, whether he's in or out, but still a guy I think is worth rostering at this point as he works his way back into the lineup.
Corey Davis remains sidelined for Thursday's practice, although he says he feels better than last week. He's dealing with a groin injury. That could be either not too serious or serious as hell. If he's not going to be playing, obviously Moore and Crowder are going to be getting a lot more work.
A lot more work, but still when it comes from Zach Wilson, it just doesn't matter. The one guy that's been able to kill Elijah Moore all year. Again, wide receiver 1 in all the games he didn't play without Zach Wilson, and now with Zach Wilson, he's just abysmal. It's just crazy to me that there's that much of a discrepancy.
It's too bad.
Allen Robinson not practicing, not that it matters because you're never playing him anyways. He should be on waiver wires anyways. It does matter, though, for Darnell Mooney. Even greater target share upside as he's had these last 3 weeks. He's been a top 14 receiver for all of them, top 5 wide receiver, 2 of them. I mean, the guy has been going berserk, and I think that will continue with Andy Dalton still at the helm. He loves him. He'll get peppered again. So just keep firing up Darnell Mooney without doubt.
Desean Jackson was absent from Raiders practice on Thursday after he was limited on Wednesday. And we know it's kind of a rule of thumb. If you have a limited followed by a no practice, that's almost always a bad sign. However, Ian Rappaport says that's not the case, and it doesn't seem to be serious. All I can say about anything involving Desean Jackson is who the hell knows? I have no idea.
You never know what's going on with this guy, but we'll talk about him later in our Hail Marys because I do think he is worth a dart throw if you are desperate this week. I think he could blow up. Brandon Cooks did not practice the same illness that David Johnson has. He's in a great spot against a Colts team that's given up the most passing touchdowns in the league this year. He's coming off a touchdown against whoever they faced last week. It's the fucking Texans. I don't know. I can't remember who the Texans played last week. But would be he's in my top 20 wide receivers, assuming this illness is not something lingering, but we will, of course, continue to track that alongside David Johnson's status.
Odell Beckham Jr., 98% of the snaps he played in last week, but he did not practice on Wednesday. I don't know if he practiced today. I've not heard one way or another. In his game last week, he did have 5 grabs for 81 yards and a score, and he was targeted 10 times. McVay says he expects him to play for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, and I do think it's worth a lot. We'll cover him when we get to higher, lower Hail Mary again. And it sounds like the reports, my man Toons kind of got my little Adam Schefter lumberjack over there, texting that Henderson did not practice today. These are just coming out right now from the West Coast reports here. Beckham also remained sidelined too. So This is something you got to keep monitoring. Friday is always that kind of crucial day where we see a lot of people ruled out or not practicing and very much a game time decision. So continue to track that moving forward on both of these guys. That news just coming out a few minutes before we went live. So there you guys go. Moving to tight ends, just 2 quick notes. Freiermuth is full. So barring a very unlikely setback, he should be good out there against a bottom 5 against the tight end Ravens defense. And Freiermuth has been a top 6 tight end in every game he's played without Eric Ebron this year. Would be right back into my top 8 tight ends and pretty much a must start above guys like Hawkinson and pretty much all tight ends, but 4 or 5 in my rankings. I have Pat Fry above. So get him fired up, have him locked in there. He's going to crush it again. And Darren Waller was sidelined. Nobody expects him to play. We'll cover Foster Moreau a little bit later.
I like the comment in the Waller comments where it says specifically there was quote unquote no sign of him at practice. He wasn't sidelined. He just no one even spotted the guy in the facility for whatever that's worth. So it really seems like it's quite unlikely that he's going to.
They sent out a search party, and still there's been no sign of Darren Waller.
If any of you have seen Darren Waller around,
give a call.
Possibly his family is looking for him. I don't know.
Alert the authorities. There's been no sign of Darren Waller. I love it, and that wraps up our news. We'll talk about Foster Moreau and the impact that Waller being out will have on him a little bit later when we get to tight ends, higher, lower, Hail Mary. Quote, just a little preview. He's my favorite Foster Moreau streaming tight end at only 18% rostered right now. I think you can plug him right in the lineup. So you're not going to get Waller, but I think he's going to be a very
Waller hasn't really been that great, so maybe you will get Waller.
Yeah, right. Maybe indeed.
All right. We're going to have to hustle a little bit. We got 66 questions or maybe a little more sitting in the box right now. It's 7:36. We're going to hit higher, lower, Hail Mary. If you haven't given us a like or a love or whatever currency your social media platform deals with, throw it our way. We'd really appreciate it. Higher. You got Dak Prescott as your number one quarterback. That's 7 spots higher than the experts. That's a pretty big discrepancy when you're talking about the number one guy or your number one guy. In lesser news, you have Mac Jones going against Buffalo as your QB 16, 4 spots above the experts, 39% owned. Is that right?
Yeah, 39% rostered right now. Let's start with Dak, my number one QB going tonight. I'm all aboard Dak bombarding the Saints team. He's had over 20 fantasy points in all but 2 games this season, including 25 on Thanksgiving against a better Raiders pass defense than Saints pass defense. Ultimately, without his weaponry, without CeeDee Lamb, without Amari Cooper, still put up 25 on Thanksgiving. I think he's going to go for 30 plus tonight. Either way, you got that nice 20 plus floor baked in. I don't know how he's QB8. Given the stats he's put up, he's way higher than that on the season. The matchup is certainly more than ripe. I guess the only concern would be if the Saints don't show up at all, does he have to continue to keep the air under the ball? But given how good they are as a run D and how bad they are as a pass D, I think even if they get a big lead, it's just going to be a Dak onslaught tonight. So this is me calling a huge Dak game. You got a question like Stafford versus Dak. I'm all in on Dak. Even the guy mentioned a 300-yard bonus. Dak's going to throw for that. I love Dak all day. And then Mac Jones, Buffalo, yes, the hardest matchup for QBs, but no Tre'Davious White. That certainly lowers that defense's appeal. I think this game, it could shoot out. It could be a defensive battle, but either way, Mac Jones has been sneaky better fantasy QB than I would have imagined, would have gave him credit for. He seems like the classic, real life great, but fantasy wise, no. And then you look at his stats across the last couple games where he's been cooking. 20, QB5, 11 was a little bit of a dud against Atlanta, only QB 19, but then 22 against Tennessee, 22 points, the QB 7 there. 2 games in his last 3 in the top 7 QBs. That's nothing to sneeze at. And notably, they've come against the better teams, quote unquote, that they've been playing because they put more on Mac's plate. And all he does is rise to the occasion. So huge fan of Mac Jones this week, even in a quote unquote tough match against Buffalo. I think that actually helps him out and boosts his stock. So I think he's viable as a streamer for sure.
All right, we're going to talk lower, and I want to be really careful not to get derailed for 5 minutes on this because I feel like we could both rant about it for a long time. Russell Wilson, you got him as your QB 14, 4 below the experts. I have no idea. Honestly, I think you're both high. I think that,
Oh, no, I have him at QB 18. I wrote that wrong. So he's QB 14. And
the experts have him at 14? All right, well, that's maybe closer. But, can we just take 10 seconds and talk about how terrible the Seahawks are?
Awful.
Just awful. Every week we go on. Remember when they played Washington last week? We're like, oh, maybe this will be the week the Seahawks come back. We see, and it's no, they're awful.
They're bad.
They scored a touchdown on their last drive. Then they blew the 2-point conversion. By the way, DK was open in the end zone on that completely.
Always.
Yeah, they're awful. We don't even need to say anything else about why he's so low. It's because they're terrible.
Right.
And then Justin Herbert, you've got as your QB 10, 4 below the experts. I honestly can't believe the experts have this guy 6.
Exactly. I think 8 fantasy points in his first 2 games back. Granted, Wilson did put up 19 last week, but he was at 11 until that last drive. He was going to have another complete dud. As you said, who cares? They look, your eyeballs, if you watch that Seahawks offense, they have nothing close to when Russ used to cook. This is an awful, awful offense. It's a slug to watch. San Fran's a pretty solid defense overall, middle of the pack. That's better than Washington. The fact that he didn't do more damage against Washington is more concerning to me than anything. So yeah, I think he continues to blow. I'd be benching him for Taysom Hill, which is kind of terrifying because you never know when Russ is going to just chuck for 3 touchdowns and 300 yards, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. And then Justin Herbert, yeah, I mean, sure he's kind of like the Mike Williams of QBs, granted the guy he's throwing to, that kind of makes sense, but he's been very boom or bust. 35, then 13, 32, then 16, 43, then 12. It seems very unsteady. Now, lately he's been better. He's had 32, 13, 35, 22, but a top 6 quarterback in those 3 of 4 games. But Cincinnati is bottom 5 matchups for QBs. It does have a potential shootout style narrative, but he's a lot riskier than I think a lot of people give him credit for. And I would, like I said, 4 spots below, probably starting in most lineups as my QB 10, but there's definitely guys I would consider above him that I routinely get questions on. Like I'd rather have Kirk Cousins against Detroit's lowest ranked secondary by PFF. I'd rather have Stafford, who's often ranked below Justin Herbert. I'd even rather have Hurts off that dud this last week than Justin Herbert.
Guys, you're going Hail Mary on. We've already talked extensively about Taysom Hill. He has only 34% rostered. You've got him as your QB 13 going tonight. So if you want some action tonight, he's a guy worth taking a shot on. Granted, he's got some depleted things going for him on the offense, but we've already talked about all that. Check him out if you want. If you want to go a little deeper, Tyrod Taylor, only 9% rostered going against the Colts.
Yeah, we already talked about Hill, as you said. Just again, that rushing upside does give him a big ceiling, but the floor is cavernous, as our guy Mike Masick, I don't know if you tuned in. Apparently he loves that word. He tweeted at me on Twitter, which I love. It's a great word, cavernous. And then you got, Tyrod Taylor, just uninspiring, of course, but there is that sneaky rushing upside. He had 19 and 16 in his last 2 games, was QB 11 and QB 14 in those since the bye week. That's not bad. And Indy, as we keep emphasizing, is a top 10 matchup for QBs, the most passing touchdowns given up in the league. I think you can do a whole lot worse than Tyrod at 9% rostered. If you need a desperation fill-in and you missed out on Taysom, if you missed out on, let's even say Taylor Heineke, I'd rather have. But if you miss out on those guys, I think Tyrod could certainly get it done for you against Indianapolis.
These must-watches, there's 3 of them. They all kind of speak for themselves. Kyler Murray back in action. Of course, that's must-watch TV all the time. Pat Mahomes off a bye. Absolutely. Can he rebound? And Jalen Hurts, who you mentioned earlier, after a bit of a dud game. These guys are all, they can all do it with their legs. Hurts doesn't do it with his arm that much, but they're all must-see TV. So I agree with you on all of these.
Yeah, exactly. Especially Hurts, too, against the Jets, just what the doctor ordered. But how limiting is that ankle? Because that will be very telling if we have this guy in lineups moving forward. So, yeah, all 3 of those guys. I can't wait to get Kyler back on the field. Was the QB1 for so long this year. I hope we have that Kyler. That's what I'm watching for. Do we have the Kyler Murray that's zipping all over the field? I hope so, and I can't wait to find out.
I hope so. He's so fun to watch. Let's go to running backs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire going against Denver, running back 19. You only got him 2 spots above the experts. Not much of a discrepancy. Also, Boston Scott, who I mentioned earlier, going against the Jets, but we do know that he missed practice with an illness, so we'll see. I'm assuming if he plays, you like him as your RB24, 3 spots above the experts.
Yep, 100%. CEH, right off injury, 70% of the workload. Denver, pretty decent defense all around, but they can be had. They can be run on.
They've been better since they lost Von Miller, by the way.
Weirdly, yes, they have been, which is surprising. But CEH involved at the stripe in the last game, scored a touchdown with the finger point, that devastating point that deserves to get fined. And kids, don't watch that. It's terrifying. I can't believe these taunting rules. They're just so fucking sickening. But I do like CEH. He's got, again, 70% of the work in one of the better offenses. Is always going to have a place in starting lineups. I get a lot of questions about him heading into the week. So, yeah, I know it's only 2 spots above the ECR. There's not a whole ton that I'm hugely – the running back ranking in general is pretty efficient this week. But I do think CEH is right back in play, given the work he saw. I love, a team fresh off the bye, another week to really get himself healthy. It was the running back 11 the last time we saw him. I think we could get yet another big game. And then Boston Scott, all he does is produce when he gets the work. He gets the most valuable work in terms of receptions, goal line work. Had over 12 points last week, was the running back 18. Well ahead, doubled up what Miles Sanders put out there. So yes, as much as I've been hyping up Sanders and excited, I think he gets his first time in the end zone. That doesn't mean Boston Scott. That's how bad the Jets are. I keep harping back to the day that we saw Nyheim Hines go off for 25 fantasy points against that team. after Jonathan Taylor had already put up 40. So that's how bad this run defense is. This is not Jonathan Taylor, of course, with Miles Sanders, but still, I could see both of those guys having 20-plus fantasy points and being very, very viable starts.
Guys, you're lower on Damian Harris going against the Buffalo Bills. You got him as your RB 27, 4 spots below the experts. Ty Johnson, you got going against Philly. It's your RB 45, 11 spots below the experts. And you have written in caps, why start him? I was just going to say, why are we even talking about him at all?
Well, I get questions on him. I don't get it. And he's ranked as the running back 36. So I think he's out of most people's starting guys, but 36 would suggest he could be a flex play.
Tevin Coleman did more damage than he did.
Yeah, Tevin Coleman's outcarried him every single week, I think, that they played together. At this point, certainly last week, Coleman saw 14 or so carries. So, yeah, if you got to go to the Jets' backfield, it's probably Coleman. And if you missed on Coleman, guess what? What's his name? Walter was his last name, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Walter or something. But also, if you're in a situation where you have to go to the Jets' backfield, with Michael Carter out, what have you done?
What has happened to you? Yeah,
right.
Exactly. The Phillies been an okay matchup against running backs, but still, this guy was the distant third behind a creature named Austin Walter. Why is he ranked inside the top 36? I don't get it. More importantly, though, Damian Harris. That's someone that people are probably actually considering in lineups, and rightfully so. He's been a touchdown machine, even scored last week. That score did really bail him out, though. He ultimately put up 12 points as the running back 19. Pretty solid. Every time he scored a touchdown, he's been pretty decent. I am a little sketched out that he saw 55% of the rushing share and 45% went to Ramondre Stevenson. That's about as near even as a split as you could get. I feel like Stevenson honestly looks even a little better, as good as Harris has looked. I'm not sitting here hating on him. And this is the type of game that we saw Taylor pound them down the throat. The Pats do have the line that could potentially do that too, but Buffalo is returning star Luauti. I don't know how to say his last name. He is a run clogging nose tackle, though. So I think they already were pretty resistant against the run, and they've given up the fewest points to running backs besides that Jonathan Taylor game. I'm a little bit nervous that the way these guys nibble their cheese, that you're going to get more often that 7-point week, running back 30 we saw a couple weeks ago, and that was against Atlanta, one of the softest matchups. You had a tougher matchup on paper with a timeshare backfield, and Bolden's back involved as a receiver. It's something for me that I'm going to avoid if I can.
Yeah, Hail Marys. I actually like this first one quite a bit. Matt Breida against New England, 37% rostered. It's a Buffalo backfield just doesn't look too good in general. And, if Breida became the breakout guy, it would not shock me. But also not shock me if nobody did. And it was just kind of the Josh Allen running show. Also, we talked about Rex Burkhead before. Possibly he's about to get an increase in carry because David Johnson may or may not be sick. He's only 8% rostered. So if you want Burkhead, you could probably get a piece.
Yeah, exactly. Breida, of course, my preferred option, but I always like to toss in somebody that's under 10% rostered when we're talking Hail Marys. First, though, looking at Breida, he's been the lead running back in terms of fantasy points for 3 straight weeks for Buffalo, to the point they actually made Zach Moss a healthy scratch last week. 17, 7, and 13 points for Breida, running back 11, 28, and 17 in that span. That is solid. The guy is explosive as he's ever been. I've always just been a huge Breida fan as a player. Big talent, in my opinion, and he's kind of a perfect fit for this offense, given how explosive he is in space. Singletary is not. He's slow. He's a bit sluggish. He churns. He falls forward, and I like that. But for his size, you'd think Singletary would be more explosive. Breida definitely brings that different gear, a much more dangerous weapon. And the Pats have not been great at covering speedy little backs with those slow linebackers. I think Breida could have himself one of those wheel routes that just gets deep against this defense. So definitely in play as a Hail Mary. And then, Burkhead, it's just a bet on volume. He saw the most work last week, saw the most work the week before. Did he do much with it? No. Is it dangerous to bet on volume? Of course, that's what happened with Tony fucking Jones just a week ago. But the matchup's not bad. Indy, they're pretty good linebacking core, but they have given up a fair amount of receptions. So if David Johnson misses time, it will be all Rex Burkhead. Again, that might still only lead to 6 points, but at 8% rostered, what more are you hoping for than a handful of carries? Let's be real.
Right. Must watches. Is Eli Mitchell going to be the receiving back with Hasty returning? That's a good question. I mean, I could see it. I would be kind of disappointed if he wasn't, but it would fit with what they've done earlier in the year. But man, imagine if he becomes kind of a 3-down guy.
Yeah,
he could be like a top 3 dude the rest of the year. Also, Gibson without McKissick, Javonte if Melvin Gordon sits. Wow. And also interested in Tony Pollard's role tonight. I'm interested.
Yeah, there's been lots of rumblings. They might reduce Zeke's role.
Yeah.
He's had that bone bruise going on in his knee. Of course, Jerry Jones comes out and says, like, no, we're going to increase his touches. Like, we would never bench this guy or never rest him. I mean, whatever. Like, the stupidity of that type of comment is ridiculous because Pollard is more explosive, a better. Every time he touches the ball, he pops off way more than Zeke. It's a hampered Zeke. Zeke was flying around earlier in the year, but it's clear he does not bring nearly what to the table that a healthy Tony Pollard is right now. So I'd love to see that role get increased as it did on Thanksgiving night. We saw 15 total fantasy points, found the end zone on that rushing score, 4 catches, 10 carries. Like, we get another 14 to 15 touches against the Saints, we could have another big Tony Pollard day. So I think he's well worth considering tonight. Let us know if you have any Tony Pollard style questions for your lineups. As you mentioned, Eli Mitchell goes from a top 12 back to a top 5 back if he is continuing to get that receiving work with Hasty back. He's gotten it all these last few weeks. Intriguing to see if that happens. And then just like, how high will Gibson go without McKissick? Will he be a true every single down back? Are they going to force on Jarrett Patterson? My guess is he is that true every down back in a top 5 matchup, and he just goes crazy for about 25, 30 fantasy points. We will see. As with Javonte, if Gordon sits, I would just love to see this man with volume because even on 12-ish touches a week, he's so beautiful to watch.
All right, we got to hustle because we got a ton of questions, and I know a lot of them are about the actual game. So let's go. Wide receivers, you're higher on DeAndre Hopkins going against the Bears. Wide receiver 15, 5 above the experts. Also OBJ, if he plays, going against a very juicy Jacksonville matchup. Wide receiver 27, 5 above the experts. You also like Hunter Renfrow. God, you got like a million people here. Hunter Renfrow going against the Washington football team, and also all the Cowboys receivers tonight, specifically CeeDee Lamb. You got him at 7, 6 above the experts. Amari, wide receiver 22.
Yep. And like I said, we got to go quick here. But the Bears, 6 most points allowed. Hopkins is fully healthy. They've really taken their time with him. I imagine he's right back to full go and should be in everybody's top 10 receivers. The fact that he's outside the top 12 in most rankings blows my mind. He's going to be a stud this week and dominate as he always does. And then, as you mentioned, we got, I just lost my fucking place. Odell Beckham playing 98% of the snaps last week, 10 targets, 26% target share in one of the most explosive attacks. That deep bomb touchdown was so beautiful to see him still gaining the separation that he always does. I think he can kill it yet again against a big play surrendering 11th most points allowed to wide receivers, Jaguars defense. Then you got Hunter Renfrow, 4th most points allowed to wide receivers, that Washington football team. The guy has 14 or more half PPR points in 3 of his last 4 weeks, including a week as the wide receiver 9 last week. That nice blow up. He's an absolute. Renfrow's like a sneaky stud. I really like Renfrow as a player. Consistent, steady volume, and we keep saying he's the classic people that we like to say low ceiling, high floor. I mean, wide receiver 7 last week, wide receiver 14, wide receiver 10 in his last 3 finishes. That's a pretty damn high ceiling, if you ask me, and a great matchup for the guy to boot. Obviously, all into it. And then the 4th most points to wide receivers, the Saints. So I love both CeeDee Lamb and Cooper. Yes, very inconsistent, tough to trust. I get it, but I think he is in a ripe spot to rebound. And just as soon as you bench the guy, you're going to get that 22. 2 weeks ago, he had 22 points as the wide receiver 4. I think a game like that is very much in play against a very suspect defense here of the New Orleans Saints.
The Seahawks receivers, Lockett and Metcalf. We don't really have to talk about these guys too much. We talked about how abysmal the Seahawks are, but you do have Lockett 7 spots below the experts, Metcalf 10 spots below. They're still getting a lot of respect based on their names and their just natural talent, which they have. Jamar Chase, also you're lower than. You got him going against the Chargers is your 12. The experts actually like him at 5. Mike Williams going against the Bengals, wide receiver 25. The experts have him at 17. 25 seems a lot more sensible to me. Also, Jerry Jeudy at the Chiefs, wide receiver 29 for you. The experts actually like him all the way up at 20.
No, so you actually have that reversed. I have him at 38. I wrote that wrong.
Right. Well, either way, the experts like him 9 spots more than you do. Neither of you like him that much, though.
Right, exactly. Let's start with the Seahawks really quick. As you said, we already hit upon how abysmal this passing game has looked. Granted, Lockett, I'm less concerned about, who's somehow ranked below DK Metcalf. He's at least had 14 and 11 in his last 2. So if one of them is going to get it done, it's clearly been Lockett. DK Metcalf, since Geno Smith got benched, he's had 4, 5, and 2 fantasy points. The wide receiver.
Bring back Geno.
Yeah, exactly. We want Geno back. He's the wide receiver 54, 55, and 90 since Russ returned. I don't know what happened between those two, but he is not even looking his way. It makes no sense to me why you wouldn't want to get one of the best young talents involved in the NFL. Pathetic. And then Jamar Chase, we talked about this on the Monday show. Yes, he started the year with over 20 fantasy points per game across his first 5, but across the last 8, the guy has averaged only 10 fantasy points per game. He really hasn't been all that special. We already talk about all the time how T. Higgins has been averaging more expected fantasy points per game. We're seeing that kind of come to fruition where Jamar Chase, his talent is still through the roof. He can always blow this out of the door at any point by getting deep for an 80-yard score. Always in play with him, and that's why he's still in my top 12. But lately, wide receiver 27, 48, 27, 53, he hasn't even been close to that top 12 ranking that I have him for. That just kind of reflects the upside. In fact, he's number 5 is what blows my mind there. Mike Williams, just we talk about him every week. Way too boom or bust. Has not seen more than 6 targets in 5 straight weeks. It's just bad. It's too inconsistent for me. I don't want him in there. And Jerry Jeudy, like wide receiver 29, tells you he should be in play in 3 receiver leagues or 2 receivers and flexes. The guy's been the wide receiver 57, 22, 39, and 66. Teddy Bridgewater just isn't good. He can't sustain multiple receivers. Hell, he can't even sustain one right now. And yeah, Kansas City, typically you think shootout game, you got to chase points, but Kansas City's offense really hasn't been that this year. So not all that high on Jerry Jeudy at all.
Hail Marys, Kendrick Bourne, 39% owned going against Buffalo. T.Y. Hilton, only 29% owned going against Houston. And we talked about Desean Jackson, 12% owned going against the Washington football team.
Kendrick Bourne, the wide receiver 12 since week 3. How crazy is that? A legit number 1 receiver. The public's clearly coming up to him with 39%. I know a lot of you guys have asset start questions on him in the past, and I've kind of chuckled and been like, no. He's a lot better than I was realizing. As a Patriots fan, you see it every week. The guy's making these great plays, and for some reason, I did not put 2 and 2 together. Kind of like Mac Jones. Like, you don't think of him as a good fantasy player. Well, Kendrick Bourne has been. He's been, again, a top 12 wide receiver since week 3. That's crazy. Buffalo is a tough matchup, but without Tre'Davious White, I have no doubt he could go off again. T.Y. Hilton just always kills Houston. He loves it. Like he revels in the fact that he kills this team each and every year. He laughs about it in pressers. He's going to go crazy again, no matter how bad he is. He caught that goal line touchdown last week. He's going to score again, go deep. And then if you miss out on him, though, D-Jax is out there in all but 12% of leagues, facing a former Washington football team. Got deep for 100 yards and a score last week on 3 catches. You know he likes to spite his old teams. I imagine they're going to dial him up deep with regularity, and he's going to score against the team giving up the 4th most points to wide receivers. Of course, I prefer Renfrow, but I do love Desean Jackson as well as a flyer.
Before we fly into tight end, Stephen Drakes has just thrown us a few bucks and wants to know, would you drop either Sony or Boston Scott to pick up Chase Edmonds, half PPR, or should I wait on the injury reports for Henderson and the Eagles running backs? What do you think, Wolf?
I think you got it exactly how you said it the second half there, Stephen. Thanks so much for supporting the site, too. He regularly just tosses money our way, and we really appreciate that, Stephen. Thanks, you're a legend. So thank you so much for that. I would, if you don't think he's going to get scooped, I do think for season-long stretch run pushes, the guy was a very solid running back, but you got to see if Henderson sits this week, you got a top 12 running back potentially in Sony. And then, I do want to see is Scott playing. I guess it comes down to, do you need to use either Sony or Scott, assuming how the injuries shake out? If you don't need to use them regardless of how it shakes out, then yeah, of course, I'd probably rather stash a talent like Chase Edmonds. But most of the time, I'm probably going to hold both of those guys, wait it out, see what happens on the injury report, especially if you're not too worried about it getting scooped by a league mate. And especially if you need one of those 2 running backs in your lineup this week, I'd be waiting that one out in 90% of situations. Thank you, Stephen, again. We really appreciate it.
All right, let's hit these tight ends. You don't have time to even elaborate on these because we have like 100 questions. Gronk at the Colts, you got him as tight end 2. That's 2 spots above the experts. Seems about right. You also love Knox and Freiermuth for the same, they're the same rankings as last week and the same differential and all that good stuff. Right.
I'm higher on these 3 every week, and they have not let me down, any of these 3.
No,
I'm just going to keep going back to the well, baby. They're going to kill it as they always do. All 3 of these guys are scoring a touchdown this week.
They're all money. Kyle Pitts going against the Bucs, tight end 11 for you, 5 below the experts. Also Noah Fant, who really just hasn't done anything this year. Tight end 16, 2 spots below the experts.
Yep, he especially as of late. Noah Fant started the season pretty hot. He hasn't been above your tight end 20 in 3 straight weeks. Pathetic. And Kyle Pitts just, freakish, elite talent. I think so much draft type keeps this guy ranked top 6 each and every week. 2-8-8-4-4 across his last 5 games. And some of those have been easy matchups that he should have slayed. Nope, no thank you. He's on my bench. Potentially even cut if I need another player. I'm not into Kyle Pitts anymore. I'm done.
Hail Mary's Foster Moreau. We talked about him filling in probably for Darren Waller. Going against Washington, 18% on Gerald Everett, who had a touchdown, I think, last week. Also going against they can't both be playing Washington, so that's not correct, but he's 28%.
San Fran. I meant to change that. Yeah. Foster Moreau, last time Darren Waller was out, played 100% of the snaps, saw 6 targets, nearly 25% target share there, went 6 for 60 and a touchdown, was the tight end 4, if I'm not mistaken, that week. So right back in play. He filled in well for Waller last time. I think he can do it again. Carr loves throwing to his tight ends, as we know. Gerald Everett has seen 8 and 9 targets in 2 of his last 3 games. He's been a vacuum. He's been more consistent by far than DK Metcalf. The guy's been a solid top 12 tight end play in 2 of his last 3 weeks. I think he could do it again against San Fran.
All right. Also, we want to know if Dallas Goedert can rebound and is Hunter Henry lost his job. That could be interesting to check out.
Yeah, John's outplayed him and outscored him in a few different weeks. So certainly worth tracking. Alrighty, as you said, Truth, we got to go hit this mailbag. So let us get right on into it. Absolutely. And we got an Omar Foster super chat. As we always like to say, we appreciate it. We get to your questions first. We support the site, but also on a busy night like this on Thursday, if you want to make sure you get a good, nice answer, the super chats are where it's at. So thank you so much, Omar F., as always, for supporting the site. Let's start with you, and then we'll get back to the top.
All right. We want to know, he says, should I play Tony Pollard over Jerry Jeudy? Full PPR already, playing Lockett, Ayuk, and Lamb in my wide receiver spots. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'm not into Jerry Jeudy this week, as I talked about on my lower rankings. Granted, yes, if the Chiefs do what they're capable of, Judy's going to be in a solid spot, but they've really tightened it up on defense these last couple of weeks. They are not nearly the smash play matchups that we were seeing across the first 5 weeks of the season. Meanwhile, we keep seeing Pollard's role get elevated more and more with this Zeke injury news, and every time he touches the ball, he looks viable to score from anywhere on the field. Huge into Tony Pollard, yes. Not into Jerry Jeudy at all. So I am very much into that, Omar. I would be benching Jerry Jeudy for him. And I would not play Jeudy over any of those 3 receivers you mentioned. So yeah, I'm in. What do you think, Truth? Would you go Pollard over Jeudy tonight?
I would go Pollard over Jeudy tonight with all the rumors swirling about Zeke's usage or whatnot. And also just the eye test. Pollard looks really, really good. And Jeudy has not done much. You attribute mostly that to Teddy Bridgewater, and I do too, but the facts are the facts. So yeah, I would probably go Pollard.
Let's do it. All right, back to the top. First question tonight, Mr. Feldman. Let's go.
All right, Ingram or CEH?
CEH for me. I'm very worried about Ingram without those tackles here. And CEH seeing 70% of the work, was already on my higher running back. So I explained him a little bit earlier. But I'm benching Ingram in a few leagues. And I don't know. He's been good whenever he's played. I think with Taysom Hill vulturing without the tackles, we're in for a different show than what we're used to these last couple of weeks. I'm nervous about Ingram. Maybe it's Tony Jones' residual effects, but I'm not going to him this week.
You wish Bud says he's big on Pollard tonight. Okay.
All right, there you go. More boost for you, Omar. Love to see it.
Jay Bird, Gallup or Kirk?
I'm going to go Christian Kirk. Huge Christian Kirk fan. 4th most points allowed to receivers, as we talked about with DeAndre Hopkins, but now even more so with Cooper back. It just puts Gallup into that 3 receiver role. Maybe he gets deep and then that hurts, but ultimately I think Christian Kirk has the better shot of going deep with Kyler Murray back. Love him. What up, Kenny Jennings? Great to see you, brother.
NFC West preview show that we did, which seems like eternity ago. I actually said I thought you were a little low on Kirk, and you kind of gave me a hard time. Anyway,
big fan of him.
I have a long memory when it comes to stuff I was right about. Only on stuff I was right about. Jeff Lee, hey Wolf and Truth, who would you start? Taysom Hill tonight or Joe Burrow? Thank you, dudes. I would start Burrow.
Love you, Jeff Lee. Great to see you as always, man. One of my favorite members of the pack, and I would go Burrow too. Much higher floor, similar ceilings. I am, as we said, as much as I rave about Taysom Hill, what he did last year, very, very different situation than what he's walking into this year. So we cannot assume it's going to be right back to QB6 type numbers. Could be, but I'd rather wait it out on Burrow and see what happens.
Valanini, the Wolfpack is out tonight. Yes.
Indeed we are. Let's go, Wolfpack. Over 100 comments now. I love it. Let's continue.
Jenny Jennings says, let's go Saints. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony Nardella. Wolfie, Mark Ingram, Tony Pollard, or Boston Scott? I'm going Pollard.
Oh, interesting question from Nardella. I mean, I would want to say Boston Scott. This illness is kind of making me second guess this. This is a really tough one. I have these guys literally 23, 24, 25, like exact order with these 3. So that makes this extremely tough. I kind of think Pollard has a little bit more juice than Ingram tonight. I know Ingram has that higher floor, so it would seem, but I am nervous about Hill vulturing him. I'm nervous about the lack of receiving involvement. I'm nervous about the no tackles. I think I'm going to go Pollard out of this because I don't know what's going to happen with Boston Scott. If he was guaranteed to play, I would say Scott. We don't know really what his status is. And then you lose both these guys. Who's the next one up? Who's after Boston Scott if he doesn't play for you, right, Nardella? So I would probably go Pollard tonight. What do you think, Truth? I don't
Pollard.
know.
I would go Pollard.
You go Pollard too. All right, we're in agreement there, Dards. Let's see what happens.
Cooper, Gallup, or Elijah Moore?
I'm going Cooper there. I know it's a little bit of a risk coming off the injury, but man, the Saints defense, 4th most points allowed. Has there been any rumblings of being on a snap count? I haven't seen anything like that. I imagine he's going to be full go tonight. I go Amari Cooper there.
Me too. Joe Saviano, okay to play Cooper, Gallup, and Schultz tonight, hoping for a high-scoring game. Thoughts?
I mean, look, I have Dak as my number 1 QB. That's because I think he's going to light up the scoreboard, in which case a lot of these guys will go off. It could also be CeeDee Lamb having 2 touchdowns and not leaving a whole lot for these other guys as well. I think that's one too many Cowboys there. I would see, who else do you have at receiver other than Gallup? But playing Cooper and Schultz, I'm all for. I'm into that. And maybe Gallup does catch a deep touchdown. Who knows? But I would try to see who else you have on your roster and send that out a little bit. Ingram, according to Denny Jennings, he is certainly a safer play. And I think almost every expert would recommend him given how much volume he's seen without Kamara. I have a gross feeling in my stomach, and I do think it has a lot to do with what we saw from Tony Jones last time, but I'm not positive it gets better with this line completely erased right now.
All right, crazy wild card week in a 2-quarterback league with Rodgers out. I'm between Lawrence, Fields, Dalton, or Mike Glennon. Should I just go with Boston Scott in that spot? And Eagles D or Colts D?
That is a tough call. I think I always still go quarterback, though, in a 2 QB league. I would probably go for Lawrence. Who are the Jags facing? We talked about it's not a great matchup, though, against the Rams.
They're going
to need to throw, but he just sucks. Maybe you do just go with Boston Scott there. I wait that one out. Let's see if Scott's healthy, ready to go, because the Jets matchup is a good spot for about 15 from him, whereas these quarterbacks might all get single digits. Eagles D or Colts D? I think I'm leaning Colts D against Houston. They've been a great defense all year, and Houston's certainly a matchup you can exploit. So I like Colts there.
Joe says it's a fantasy playoffs atmosphere for sure. Need a win tonight. Good luck, buddy.
Let's go, baby. It is. It's kind of an extension of the playoffs for a lot of us. Do or die to get in. Do or die to get the buys. I love it, Joe. We have a big one tonight, baby. Love to have you here.
Ben says, what's up, my fellow members of the Tony Jones Jr. support group? Please super chat in lieu of flowers, people.
I love that recommendation. Thank you, Ben. He always comes in with the comments of the night. I greatly
Ben, off the top rope.
Always is.
Right.
And as we continue to answer these questions, Wolfpack, that thumbs up does continue to help us to get out to more people. It's so greatly appreciated. Already seeing some new names here, which I love too. Please help us to get to that 2K. If you like what you're hearing, you want to put that bell on so you know when we're live, would be so appreciated if you consider subscribing to help us get to that 2K goal. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much for being here.
Katie Jake says, hey, fellas, need to beat my cocky-ass husband this week, who has never won a playoff game, by the way. Need a running back and a flex. Boston Scott, Pollard, Mike Williams, Bateman, full PPR. Give me 2 of those, Wolf.
I think I'm going the 2 running backs here. I know it's full PPR, but both those guys have a lot of receiving juice. Bateman's been so down, like up or down, and mostly down. As much as I love the player, volume hasn't been there for him. And Williams just way too boom or bust for me to trust. Granted, whenever you recommend to bench him, that's like the 40-point day. It seems to happen. But still, I love both these running backs. So ultimately, it boils down to, yes, I think you play Pollard tonight. And then, of course, if Scott doesn't play, you have Williams to toss in there for some upside. But I kind of like both running backs here. I saw you nod in truth. You agree?
I do agree. I mean, the Boston Scott thing gives me – I mean, they both give me a little bit of pause. But, yeah, I think I think those are probably your best bets. It's tough to support Williams right now.
Mm-hmm.
Troy Cohen, a question for next year. How big of a risk of taking Patterson in the first round next year? I think that's going to be the biggest question next summer.
I love the question, Troy. I can't give it too much time because we have a big night with a lot of questions about tonight right now. I think it's one of the definite questions we're going to be asking. I imagine he's going to be underranked and go towards like the late second, early third range, and people aren't going to doubt him. And I'll be scooping him up all day if that's his price. First round might be a little rich for me, but I mean, he's played himself with the first round value. Let's put it that way.
Jeff says, please pick 2 at running back. Sony Michel, Matt Breida, or Latavius Murray. I'm leaning Sony and Breida. LOL.
Yeah, I mean, if obviously Sony's the top option if Henderson misses. He's not even in the same stratosphere. I like Breida either way compared to these guys. If Henderson plays, I might go Lat Murray. He's seen 12 carries in back-to-back games. Always a viable threat to fall his ass into the end zone. And the Steelers have been getting bludgeoned lately on the ground. So I'd go Breida Murray if everybody's healthy. But if Henderson sits, it's obviously Sony and then Breida. We got a nice super chat here from Benny T. I appreciate that, Benny T. Let's catch up what you got.
Benny T is just sending us, he's given us money and information so we can say it on the show, which I really appreciate. He says Cowboys beat writer just tweeted that Cooper only watched 7-on-7s in warmups and did not take a single rep in 11-on-11.
Ooh, that's really sketchy.
But he's also given us money to put that on the show. So thank you so much. That's so nice of you.
I think that must be Benny Tomsick over from Facebook. Maybe not. Yeah? Maybe just another Ben T. Either way, Ben T, you are an absolute legend. That's huge news to discuss really quickly because that changes my ranking. I know I've been saying no Gallup because I think Cooper is back. 25. I see another report in here that says 25. They just said a 25 snap count according to Yahoo. So this definitely makes Cooper quite a bit more sketchy. I'm bumping him down now to below T.Y. Hilton. Crazy right there. I'm bumping up Michael Gallup now to above Van Jefferson, Elijah Moore, Beckham. I'm bumping him up. I had Cooper at 22. I'm bumping Gallup right up ahead of DK Metcalf at 25. So anybody that has a question about Gallup, he's now my wide receiver 25. Cooper's now my wide receiver 38. I had to flop that. Now, granted, on 25 snaps, could Cooper go deep and do something crazy? Sure. But I think that definitely locks in Gallup to a lot more work, and we have to give him a whole lot more consideration. So definitely changes things up. Thank you so much, Ben, for paying us to then share some news.
To make our show better. Thank you.
That's a legendary move. That's great news for the Wolfpack out there. So let's continue on now answering these questions. If I already told you Cooper, we might now need to reconsider that. If I told you to not play Gallup, we also now need to reconsider that as well. So get your questions back in, and we'll continue to try to get to them.
Well, I think you're going to need to go rapid. You got like 9 minutes, and you got like 90 questions. So
all right, I need to publish my rankings. So, Truth, I need you to keep reading them and going through it for me.
All right, Toon says Godwin, Ayuk, CD, T. Higgins. Sit one.
I'm sitting T. Higgins in that group, and I love all four of them, but, man, I got to sit T there.
Brandon Ho, pick 2. Mixon, J-Rob, Ingram.
I am picking Mixon, of course, and then I think I waited out for J-Rob. It just depends. If he doesn't play, who's your next option? Because if you have trash, then you got to go Ingram tonight.
Eat powder from Montana. Yo, guys, hope for a good game tonight. Weird question. I need every point. You think the weather is heavily going to affect Folk? Thanks, fellas.
I'm not. I don't play the weather game. I get with kickers, it really could. What's the weather forecast right now? I think that's when we got to revisit on Sunday, see what it's looking like closer. Because how can you forecast 5 days ahead and make a kicker decision tonight? Sorry, Heat Powder. We're gonna have to revisit that one on Sunday. Let's continue.
Steven Feldman, thoughts on Ingram as a fantasy starter over CEH or Montgomery?
I prefer both the second two, CH and Montgomery, to Ingram. I am very nervous about Ingram tonight. Could be dead wrong, but Tony Jones has me nauseous about this backfield, and so does the no tackles. So does Taysom Hill vulturing. It's setting up to a trap to me for Ingram. I'm kind of benching him this week, I think.
Toon says I only have one IR spot, but I seem destined for the playoffs. Do I hold on to Ridley or do I dump him?
I think you dump him. I don't think he's coming back this year. With the Falcons useless, they're not going to want him back. I don't think.
Can you hear this in my house right now?
No, not at all.
Oh, good, because my daughter's dribbling like 3 basketballs directly above where I'm doing this, and it sounds like a machine gun.
I can't hear any of it.
All right, good. Toon says Ingram, Javonte, Van Jefferson need an RB and a flex.
I would go. I might go Ingram, Javonte here. I've gotten that one from Dan Colquhoun to Ingram versus Van. I really do want the Van blow up this week, though. You know what? I'm going Javonte Van. I just don't. I'm staying on brand. I'm hiding away from Ingram this week. Todd Exotic
says, "I love Todd Exotic." Hey, fellas, I'm back in the running for a playoff spot. Please help your boy pick it, flex, half-point PPR, CEH or Pollard.
I go CEH tomorrow. I would bench Pollard for CEH. Much love to you, Todd Exotic, as well. Right. Looks like we got a super chat, Truth.
All right. I'm not going to throw it up on the screen because I don't want to lose my spot, but I'm going to read it anyway. And thank you so much. What's up, Wolf? Would you start Pollard over Sony or Javonte? And which two? Elijah Moore, T.Y. Hilton, Bateman, or Sanders, PPR?
I would go Javonte. Not Sony. We just don't know enough. If we knew Sony was going to be a locked-in starter, then no, I would have Sony and Javonte in there. We don't know that, so you might have to get Pollard in there. But I definitely go Javonte, assuming Melvin Gordon's out. So I probably wait this one out. I think I don't play Pollard tonight if you only need one of those 3 guys. Which two? Is that what he's asking? Yes, yeah, Pollard. Yes. So I bench Pollard here. Eli Moore, T.Y. Hilton, Bateman, Sanders. I'm going Eli and T.Y. I'm going the first 2 there. both T.Y. against Houston, blow up spot. And Eli Moore, yeah, I get Zach Wilson's a definite detriment to his value, but still, it's Eli Moore. He's the wide receiver 1. They can get it done at some point, and those other options just aren't inspiring at all to me.
By the way, we just got a comment saying he can definitely hear the bouncing basketballs for sure.
Oh, I can't.
So
yeah.
I apologize, guys.
I think I can hear it.
Next broadcast, I'll make sure she's dribbling. We have a large house, and she's picked the spot directly above where I'm broadcasting to do that.
Beautiful.
So that's good. All right, go ahead, Wolf.
I'm going Herbert over Hill. I just wanted to make sure. Can you keep pulling them up? I'm just publishing my updated.
Who gets bumped up and down with Taysom Hill? We talked about that, right? Or did we?
Yeah, Ingram gets a little bit bumped down in my opinion. No catches to running backs, the goal line vulturing, all that stuff.
All right, half point PPR flex. Van Jefferson, Bateman, or Boston Scott.
I like Boston Scott, assuming he's in there, and if not, I like Van Jefferson.
All right, full PPR, Ingram or McLaurin.
I'm gonna go McLaurin, no doubt about it. I can hit the questions now and go for a rapid fire here.
Okay, I'm gonna go tell my kid to move where she's dribbling. So go ahead.
Alrighty, awesome. I'm gonna go Gaskin over Ingram. Good evening, Trey S. I'm going James Conner, Eli Mitchell. Yep, lock those guys in. I didn't even see the other guys, but now that I have, definitely going those guys. Wilson or Burrow. I'm going Burrow all day. I'm done with Wilson. Half PPR, Taysom Hill or Mahomes. I'm going Mahomes all day, Sarah. I am high on Hurts. I am a little bit nervous with a sore ankle. I get what you're saying there, Tunes. Who in my wide receiver 1 and 2 deserves to be out? More Cooper. You got to bench Cooper at this point, Pena, based on the news that you helped us know. So thank you for that. But yeah, you got to bench Cooper. I would go Terry McLaurin locked in at 1 and probably Odell Beckham locked in at 2 there for you. Taysom Hill over Tua for me, James Creed, especially with the lesser passing touchdowns, the rushing upsides where it's at in those type of scorings. DJ Johnson, happy PR, pick 2. Zeke, Singletary, Coleman. I would go Zeke, and I would go probably Coleman, but I'd make sure to get Zeke in there tonight, even though it's a little risky. Those other options are gross. Taysom Hill or Josh Allen? Oh, it's got to be Josh Allen. Come on now. I like Taysom Hill, but no, that's not even a question, William G. Truth how you feel about Judy. Neither of us like him this week.
I think he's an underachiever.
Definitely. Bench 1, Ingram, Mitchell, Henderson, and Jay Williams. I am going to bench. Henderson might not play, so he might be the bench. If we knew he was playing, then Ingram would be my bench. So that's tough. I would probably play Ingram tonight, though, because that's a tough situation, Frank, because I don't think Henderson plays. Unless you have Sony. If you have Sony, then I would bench Ingram tonight. If you don't have Sony, I think you got to play him. That's how I play that situation. And thanks again, guys. That thumbs up does help us get to more people. Super chat, if you got something you need before kickoff, we got 3 more minutes. Let's get here. I have too many running backs. I can't. I would go Najee. I would go Connor. And then I would go the Rams running back, Joe Kingsley, is how I do that. I go Chiefs against Denver. Renfrow and Sanders over Eli Moore. Weird that you want to start Pollard over Zeke. If you got the feeling, Todd, you always ride that out. Not weird at all. He's certainly
You're not the first person I've heard say that, Todd.
Folk or Gay? I'm going Folk. He's got 22 points last week. I love him to death. Chuba or Chase Edmonds? Chase Edmonds, definitely. I think Chuba's in a committee the rest of the year. Huge game. Here we go. I'd go T.Y. Hilton, and then I'd go Desean Jackson as the 2 Hail Marys I love. Lamb or Scary Terry? I'm going Lamb there. Russell Kaiser, love him tonight. Scott or McKissick? I wouldn't drop either of them for Hyde unless we know that he's out. So you wait on that news. Judy, Devonta Smith, Van Jefferson, Gallup, or Mooney? I would go Gallup now that we know that Cooper is going to be limited. And then I would go Mooney. Gallup and Mooney is how I play that one. Hurts limited. Yeah, it definitely is something we'll have to reconsider by Sunday. Ingram or Miles Sanders? I'm going Miles Sanders against the Jets. We got to skip these Daryl Williams. He's useless. He's a handcuff only at this point. Good to see Devonta Barker practicing. I think he, nice target share from Tua. Logan Thomas, yes, over Pitts. Pitts sucks. Did not practice. Thank you for sharing that. No Kamara. We know he's out. Tony's always injured. Grindhouse, stop. You're killing it with the comments. I love it. Appreciate the interaction. I'm feeling all right, my man. Great to see you back always, Grindhouse, stop. I don't mean to blow over you. We just have a lot of questions to get these last 3 minutes. Derek Carr, roll with Taysom Hill. I go Derek Carr there as a direct comparison I made at the beginning. Just a little bit higher of a floor. Any chance Lamar could definitely have a bounce back game? Yes, Lamar. He always has bounce back upside grind. Hawkinson, Moreau, or Schultz. I'm going to go Schultz there, Mahmoud. Tight end, I'm going Knox over those other guys. No, I'm going Kittle. Sorry, Juan Pena. I'm going Kittle. 3 great tight ends, though. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Baltimore is so bad. Yeah, I don't get it, Tunes. Hill or Tua? I'm going Hill. Jay Lopez, I feel like you've asked that a few times. I want to put you in timeout, but I'll lose my spot, so I'm not going to do it.
Don't do it.
Put him in timeout if you want. Bad weather in Buffalo. So, yeah, I guess you got to keep that in the eye for being down on Damian Harris, maybe that was a little bit rushed. Flex, I think you go double tight end. You go Kittle, you go Knox in my opinion here. Dogs, what's up, Josh? Carson Wentz or Taysom Hill? I'm going Carson Wentz, but it is really, I'm going Taysom Hill. It is really close to
really?
that. DK has been awful indeed. Truth, your top sleeper this week. Do you have a top sleeper?
I mean, maybe Darrell Williams.
Yeah. Oh God, come on now. Bateman over Cooper. Yeah, based on the snap count reports, I would do that now that we have that news. Taysom Hill or Kirk Cousins, just checked in with you guys. Kirk Cousins, brother, is where I would roll. Daryl Scott, I definitely go Boston Scott there. I prefer Daryl real life wise, but CH is the one getting the work. Ask this Sunday, Kelsey a tight end. You need a 2 flex spot. Scott, Gesicki, JD. I would go Scott and Gesicki. Maybe get McKissick if he plays, but it's trending towards not. Henderson did not practice, so that's looking like he might be out. Really expecting Kamara to return next week. He really could, and he would kill it against the Jets, no doubt about it. Start Cooper, Jacoby definitely with this news on Cooper. More targets rest of the season, Van or Odell. I think Odell definitely. Patriots, the real deal, 100%. They're going the soupy, baby. Love it. Taysom Hill, I do think he's in play for sure with the rushing upside, but definitely not as much as last year. Different team, banged up line. Bench Judy. Yeah, I'm benching Judy. I've had enough. Taysom Hill definitely in play. Devin King. No doubt about it. Thanks again for the super chat. Boston Scott, not at practice, but it's not COVID. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Thank you, Denny. I do hate Pitts, that offense. It just, you can't use it. Bench one, Ingram. I'm benching Ingram, especially if you have Sony Michel to back up Henderson. If not, you got to play Ingram tonight. Pitts replacements, Foster Moreau, grind don't stop, could be an option this week. Logan Thomas, as you've talked about too. Josh Allen or Derek Carr? Josh Allen, 100%. Even with the Patriots.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
I got to go Josh Allen. Mari Cooper, yep, that's the news we were talking about. Good stream. Thanks, Max Gillian. And again, a lot of new names here. The sub would be so appreciated for any of you guys that are new here. Truth, we might have to start 15 minutes earlier next time to make sure.
We keep saying that. We got to do it.
Yeah, we got to do it from now on. I would go with Kyler 100% over Taysom. I would risk it for Kyler, no doubt about it. AJ Green, Van, Chris Godwin, or Marvin Jones start 3. I would be benching probably either AJ Green or Marvin Jones. Probably Marvin Jones, though he's been useless lately. Taysom or Heineke. I go Taysom there. Thanks again, Benny T, for tweeting out, super chatting us to break news for us. We really appreciate that. You're a legend for that move. Ingram or Ayuk. I'm going Ayuk all day. Solar beats. Ayuk, Pittman, Metcalf, pick 2. I'm benching Metcalf, no doubt about it there. She done. I think we answered this one for you. I'd be benching Pollard because I think Javonte or Sony would have some upside. Husband versus wife battle. Love to see it, Jigs. Only question, what should I do week 15 when I'm waiting for I love it. Talking shit on the stream. I wish I could give that more attention, but we have some stuff to fly through. Yep. The volume's just not there as good as he is. Anna, thanks for the info. Already sitting Cooper. Absolutely. The COVID symptoms, it's very sketchy, Anna. I 100% agree. Ingram or Mooney, it's definitely Mooney for me, Patty. I hope we're not too late. I think the game might have already kicked off, but I'll still answer them as we get to the end here. Gallup or Judy? I'm definitely going Gallup over Judy Trey.
Benny T is Ben Tomzik, by the way.
Couldn't send money on. Oh, that is Ben. You're a fucking legend, Ben. We love you. Thanks, Ben. Always appreciate you. We can hear the bouncing basketballs. No worries. We all know the Zoom life with kids. Diggs or McLaurin? It's definitely Diggs, baby. You got to always start Diggs. Taysom Hill? Yeah, I'd put Taysom over Wentz because they're just going to pound Houston into submission. Agree with your analysis 100% there. Anna, see a lot of people heading out. On your way out, hit that thumbs up. I know it's kickoff time. Would be so appreciated. We're going to rip through the rest of these questions, but it would be so appreciated as you head out if you give us that like and consider subscribing. We'll make sure to get here earlier for you. I'm going Dak over Kyler. He's my number 1 QB. If you were here earlier, you would have known that. Ravens defense or Chiefs? I would go Ravens against the pathetic Steelers offense. Montgomery, Henderson, or Zeke standard. I would. You got to play Zeke tonight, and then you see what happens. Henderson and Montgomery in a vacuum would probably be higher, but we don't know that Montgomery's going to play.
Standard also. Quit playing standard. Quit playing standard.
Yeah, standard ridiculous. Touchdown-wise, too, Zeke has higher touchdown upside. So, yeah, Zeke Montgomery for me. Unless Henderson plays, that'd be Zeke Henderson. Mark Ingram, James Robinson. This became a really late John Smith, but I would go we don't know if James Robinson's going to play, so how do we know? If you have Carlos Hyde, maybe you wait that one out. Taysom Hill, Russell Wilson. Taysom Hill for me, Walter. I'm done with him. We talked about that one earlier. And John Smith, J-Rob. Dennis is ending. Day Jennings is answering you. Whew, that's everybody. I don't know if we got to everybody. We usually do. This might be the first time we didn't get to everybody.
We got close.
We got really close. That's where the super chat comes in. We'll try to start a few minutes earlier next time. But man, appreciate that many people ask that many questions. On your way out, guys, that thumbs up does help. And so many new names. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, helping us hit that 2K goal. Best of luck to everybody. Get what you need tonight. I hope everybody blows up for you. I'm the Wolf.
I'm the Truth.
Wolf of the Fancy Sheep, guys. Be that wolf. Later, guys.
Later.